Hey friends, and welcome into A Walk Through the Word, Daily Bread with Crystal Fry. I am your host, Crystal Fry, and this week's guest episode is a beautiful dose of inspiration and encouragement all the way from Central Serbia. Joining me on the show this week is Wendy Zahorjanski. Wendy is a small-town girl who was led by God to move halfway across the world, and boy, has it been a wild ride. She has laughed, cried, bled, and been, at times, hopelessly lost. She's passionate about encouraging others who are stuck in the hard parts of their story to help them see that hard is real, but so is its potential to enrich our lives, especially if God is involved. Her mission is to use her own life experiences as encouragement to help others see the wins alongside the hard things. In her upcoming book, Hard is Only Half the Story, she openly shares her process of walking through moving to a foreign country, the sadness, learning a new language, having a baby, building friendships, and so much more, all to help others see the promises hidden in the moments that they feel are too hard. We talk about perfectionism. We're both recovering perfectionists. How God often breaks us down to build us back up. The freedom and surrender, and asking a painful question for us. God, do you still love me when I'm helpless? I hope you enjoy this conversation, my friends, and don't forget to check out the show notes to connect with Wendy on social media and find out all of the good things with her upcoming book, Hard is Only Half the Story. All right, friends, here we go. God's Word is powerful. The missing link is our identity in Christ. When we know who we are and who He created us to be, that is when we can truly walk in freedom. You are never alone. There is hope, and that hope is Jesus Christ. Wendy, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It is such a pleasure to have you here. Friends, I am so excited to get to have this conversation with Wendy to talk about all sorts of things. And we're going to get an across the world perspective on a couple of things. And you'll know what I'm talking about as we get a little bit further into the episode. But for right now, Wendy, for any of our listeners who may not be familiar with you, give us a little bit of an introduction.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited to get to talk with you and share a little bit of my story. I say that I'm a small town girl who grew up in the United States, mostly in Vermont. And when I was 19, I felt like the Lord was telling me to move across the ocean. And we can get into those details, but through some circumstances, mostly not knowing what I wanted to do with my life was something that the Lord used. I moved over to Kyrgyzstan, which is a country over by China, and ended up spending some time there and studying at a Bible college in Hungary, and then landed in Serbia. And I've been living in Serbia, Central Serbia, since 2011. So that is a little piece of my story.
Wow, I cannot wait to get into more of that because I am always so deeply fascinated by how, especially people in America, in Europe, it's a little bit different because they are very accustomed to traveling between the countries and kind of all over. That's just kind of like their countries over there are kind of like our states over here from the standpoint of how people travel to them. And so I'm always fascinated when I get a guest who has had that calling and who has listened to that calling to be like, yeah, we're going to pick you up from here and we're going to take you over there somewhere and what that looks like. So I can't wait to talk about that a little bit. But before we dig more into your story, or perhaps we'll get it in the answer to this question, my favorite question that I ask all guests, and so now it's your turn to answer, is, Wendy, how has your faith impacted your life?
Yeah, I mean, in every way, really, is the short answer. I definitely wouldn't be living in Serbia if I didn't believe that the Lord had called me here. And of course, I can answer more about why, but I think a lot of the difficulties of immigrating to a new country and living in a place where you don't know the language or the mentality or the cultures would have been too much if I hadn't known that it was something bigger than me. So that was definitely, my faith was all intertwined in all of those things. And also just does impact also. Yeah, I mean, really every area. I'm trying to think of something that it doesn't impact, which is a weird way, I guess, to think about that question. But also, even just the decision to move was kind of something that I laid before the Lord in prayer. So that was also in faith, intertwined into faith. So without it, I don't even think that moving across the ocean would have been on my radar. I would have had other things in my mind, because my motivation for moving was always to tell people about Jesus and to share with them how God had changed my life. So all of that is faith, covered, saturated. I mean, you can't separate it. So my personal motivation for moving was all about faith.
I love that so much. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about how that, how did you go from Vermont mostly to, okay, I think I'm really supposed to go I think I'm really supposed to go take this story to another country. Like how did that come about?
Yeah, it definitely has a few different layers, but one of the layers was that growing up, I read tons of missionary biographies. And so all of these people became my heroes, even from when I was as little as, I don't know exactly, but probably 8, younger than 10 for sure. So I don't know, 7, 8, 9, when I really started reading some of those easier, little chapter books. And it was missionary biographies. So I just became fascinated with the idea of becoming a missionary. But I think that it was more than fascination. And I know now that it was more than fascination, that it was really the Lord like planting a seed in my heart for what I would be doing later. So it wasn't that shocking for me to move overseas. I talked about it a lot growing up. This is what I was going to do. I would say things like, Mom, don't be worried if I move, because I'm not going to live close here, those kind of things. So I think that it wasn't, even when I moved to Serbia, my mom said, well, actually, that's not that far. I mean, she had these things in her mind. She was already prepared, and she thought that I would be living in a place that wouldn't actually be as developed, a country that wouldn't be as developed as Serbia. So it wasn't quite a shock to her. Some of those desires got lost along the road. High school, of course, got confused with, maybe I should do something else with my life. I should probably go to university and study. That was a big pressure. So I went for a year. But by the end of my first year, I really didn't know still what I wanted to study. I didn't have money to keep studying. And so my older brother, who's 5 years older than me, I was talking to him, and he was a missionary in Kyrgyzstan at the time. And he said, well, why don't you just move here and figure it out? And I thought, and I couldn't come up with a good reason to say no. So I said yes. Because why not? And so I moved over there, and I lived with him and with his wife and his kids. And not only was it front row seat experience of immersion, the missionary life, all of those things, and a really great example of what it looks like, or something that I would want to emulate how they lived. It was also such a look into my own inner walk with the Lord, because it was the first time that I experienced talking to people who had absolutely no background in the faith, or I had a friend who was from a Muslim background. And so talking with her really revealed my lack of not understanding. I understood the spiritual truths on the level of me and God, but to explain it to somebody else, I really didn't have those skills. And so yeah, you're nodding your head, so I think you know what I mean for sure. But that led me to make the decision to go to Hungary to a Bible college to get more equipping. So I went there and I studied there for 2 years. It was a 2-year program. And then I stayed an extra year for an internship. And that's where I met my husband. He's Serbian. And he started telling me about his burden to go back to Serbia and to plant churches in Central Serbia. And wow. It kind of just fit in with what the Lord had already been telling me at the time what I thought he was telling me. It's kind of a big statement to say the Lord was telling me, but I thought that he was really guiding me to not to move back to the States, but to move somewhere where there weren't a lot of churches. But that was it. That's all I had. That's so many places in the world. And I thought, "Oh, God, this is not helpful. You need to narrow it down a little bit because I don't know. I don't know where to go or what I'm supposed to do." But then through starting to date, Danny is his name, starting to date Danny, and through my relationship with him, the Lord really filled in some of those details. And so, yeah, I made the jump and took the risk and moved to Serbia, and it worked out. We got married in 2012 and we're still married, so that's good. And yeah, and we moved in also in 2012 to plant a church in Central Serbia.
That is just incredible. And I laugh a little bit, especially as you're telling the story about, like, I'm pretty sure, I think I heard you, because I do that all the time. I'm like, all right, Lord, it's like, for real, come on, like, just speak plainly to me. Please just speak plainly, like, make it so easy that I cannot deny that it is you and this is what it is that you want me to do. Because I think we oftentimes, especially when it's something that requires us to take a big risk, like to move into a country that does not have, you're not moving into a
Mhm.
place where, oh yeah, everybody knows about Jesus, come on in, like, you're moving into a place where you are actually spreading the gospel, where you're actually doing and exposing people, introducing people to the story of Christ, to the love of Christ, to what is available to them. And I think anytime that God places on us to take a big risk like that, one, I think it's kind of human nature for us to second guess because, we think, oh, wow, that seems kind of big. You want me? You want me to do that? I don't know if I can. We get all of those
Yes.
troubling thoughts about, oh, I don't know if I'm worthy of doing that. I don't know if I can do
Mhm.
that. Am I capable? All of those things. But I love listening to you tell your story because, one, I think a lot of people can relate, maybe not moving
Mhm.
to Serbia, but for me, it was when I quit my corporate job. God was like, it's
Mhm.
time to go.
Yes.
And I was like, you have
Mhm.
lost your mind.
Yes. Yep.
And so, but he shows us little bit as we need it.
Yes.
And I know that can be so frustrating. And I speak for myself when I say that, like, God, you want me to do this? Could you just map it all out for me so that I
Mm.
know, right?
Yes.
So that
Yeah,
I know,
totally.
so that I have certainty that what you
Yeah.
said is going to work out. It's like, well, Crystal, if I
Yes.
did that, where would your faith be?
Yes. Yeah, it's true.
So, so how was it when you decided, okay, Serbia is the place. And so you've moved to Serbia. What was it like coming into a place where maybe you're not so familiar with your surroundings, the language, the culture, like you mentioned earlier? What was that like coming into that?
Yes, it's a really good question. In one word, it was completely overwhelming. It's actually so the book that I wrote is compiled of a bunch of true stories from my life, and most of them are my experience entering into a new culture and kind of adapting to it. And so I share some of those stories, but a lot of the first steps of entering it is being completely overwhelmed. So some parts of my story that might be different from somebody else's experience that it would be important to know is that the way that I entered in was complete immersion. So I chose to learn the language in a way where I tried to only speak Serbian, even from the beginning when I couldn't speak. So if I couldn't say anything, I tried to be quiet and I tried to completely immerse myself in the language. Obviously, my husband being Serbian helped with that because when I was out with him, people would talk to him and I could just listen. The thing that didn't help was that he could talk for me. And so sometimes I wouldn't initiate a conversation, or if I wasn't sure that I couldn't speak the sentence I wanted to say exactly the way I wanted to say it, I would be quiet. So I'm a recovering perfectionist, I like to say. So my perfectionism just got nailed when I came in because nothing was perfect about anything, about the words I was saying, about the way I was acting, about even those hands gestures that we use or things, this nonverbal communication, none of it could I do perfectly or even in a capable adult way. So I became completely like a little child and sounded like a little child. Some people treated me like a small child because I sounded like one, they weren't being mean, but I really did talk like a 3-year-old. And so some of them probably thought, man, I think that maybe she's not okay. She might be on that same intellectual level. So they treated me that way. So that hurt my pride for sure. And also hurt me. It just hurt I don't know if I'd say my sense of self, but my self-esteem, or it messed with who I was. And the Lord is so gracious in those situations that I know this, or I'm assuming but that I know you do because you talked about walking away from the corporate world, that in those times that feel like utter chaos and confusion, that he's right there next to us. And so he was the stabilizing force for sure. And he was the Holy Spirit in me. I knew that he was with me, but also having Danny, my future husband, next to me was the physical representation kind of God's stabilizing force in my life during that time. So I am so grateful for that. I think without him, I couldn't have done it, but I definitely felt like a mental breakdown. It was a breaking down of everything of who I was down to the basic level. Okay, if somebody can't see me in the sense that they don't know who I am because I can't speak, if I can't do anything for them, if I can't serve the Lord in any of the ways that I wanted to yet, because I cannot speak, I cannot go anywhere by myself, because if I get lost, I cannot come back, like all these things. I can't cook food. I don't know. I can't find, is it sour cream or is it yogurt? I don't know which thing I'm buying. It's because it's the same. It looks to this, it's the same shape, same color. I don't know. Why is the mayonnaise yellow? I thought it was going to be mustard, but it's in a yellow package. All of these things that become completely incapable, that that really, really made me stop and say to myself, and that was the ongoing question, who am I actually in the eyes of the Lord? So does he actually value me exactly the same if I could do all of these things that I wanted to do, and when I can't do anything except for sit at my table and practice my letters, which is what I did. I had a little kindergarten book and I would trace the letters. And that's how I learned Serbian. And so it was, now looking back, I can see how just my love for the Lord was deepened because his love for me never changed through that. But through that time, it was just chaos. I couldn't see any of those things when I was in the middle. It was just hanging on for dear life and believing that I'm going to get out one day and that I will actually be able to talk, which sometimes I didn't believe, but yeah.
I think that is it's a beautiful piece of your story. And I'm so grateful that you shared that piece, because so many, and yes, absolutely, so many of us can't see. We're in the middle of it and we don't understand, and we are frustrated, and we are sometimes, again, from personal experience, falling on our face and exclaiming, why, that question, why,
Totally.
why did you bring me here? This doesn't look the way I thought it was going to. I had all of these expectations, and that's usually one of our own downfalls. I had all these expectations, and this doesn't look anything like that. And how is it that you want me to come here and do this thing, and I can't even speak the language? Like that resonates with my heart so much, just on so many levels. But I love that you're able to see and to share, because so many people need to understand that question, well, God, if I can't do anything, if I can't do any of this stuff, if I am the equivalent of a helpless little child, do you still love me? Am I still valuable to you? Am I still worthy? And to know that, even though our opinions of ourselves may change and other people's opinions of us may change, the one thing that never, ever changes, no matter what our skill level up or down, God's love for us never changes, no matter what our situation or circumstance. So I love that you share that, because I fully believe that there is someone listening who definitely needs to hear that, and to know that no matter what situation they're facing right now, even if it looks impossible, no matter what it is, that God's love hasn't changed for them, not one single bit. And He's right there with them through whatever it is that they're dealing with. So thank you, Wendy, for sharing that. Ooh.
Yes, yes, that's my main motivation, I think, for sharing my story. And even for writing this book was, and it was interesting because you did it, even you pulled out all of the principles and you just took out the cross cultural details, really, from my story, and it was immediately relatable to you. And so I think that that's like makes me really excited, because that was what I was hoping, is that some of maybe the things that might seem exotic about me moving to Serbia, or some of these details that won't be relatable, actually a lot of my story is, because it's about entering something that's new or unknown, stuck right next to me, like you were saying, and just loved me the whole way. And his voice was speaking the whole time, even when I couldn't sometimes understand, like you were saying, the steps, or I wasn't sure, he really was next to me. So yeah, I'm really glad that those things came through, even as I was talking.
Absolutely. So, the name of your book, Hard is Only Half the Story. So, tell me what one, I love that title, because that's, I mean, like hashtag truth. You know, like, but tell me, what prompted you, what led you to think, maybe I should write a book, and tell our listeners a little bit about what else is in there.
Yeah, I started writing probably a year and a half ago for this book. I I'm a new author. This will be my first book to be released. It will be released in August. So it kind of been set back. It was supposed to be June, now it's August. That's okay. So it's a new journey, a new venture, this whole thing. But it was actually birthed out of a really dark time for my husband and I. We went through he had struggles with mental illness and some different things that just led us down this road of darkness that we had never been in. And my way of processing was writing. And so I just started writing in my journal, but I always have, even from a young age. And I started reading just some of the things that I was writing and thinking about and processing with him. And he finally said, I think that some of these things are too good just to be kept in the pages of your journal. Why don't you start writing them? And so that was kind of the spark that lit the fire. And then I have a good friend who is a copy editor who said, I'll help you. And without her help, there's no way I would have been able to do any of the technical things or any of that part. I would have given up for sure without her too. So she was my mentor also through the whole process. And so the Lord opened up all these doors, and I just started writing, and it really just started flowing out of me, these stories. And as I was writing, also thinking about that, actually in the past, often the ways that the Lord has used me, in the sense of that have actually been fruitful or impactful, that it's almost always been words. It's either a letter that I've been led to write for somebody, or something that I said to somebody, or a verse that I spoke, but it's always somehow been connected to words. And so I thought, maybe there's something there. I would like to develop that. And I would like to share my story. I'm not really afraid to talk about some of the dark times. I have one chapter that is about, I call it the time at the bottom of the lake, where I was totally at the bottom of the lake and couldn't get out and couldn't see. And I'm willing to talk about those things, because I know the power that it has to shed light, and just the power of God that I've seen through those times in my own life. So that is definitely the hard half of the story, and some other stories are hard, but I also wanted to focus on that when we brave the unknown with the help of God at our side, that there's also so much richness that comes by allowing him to break us down in order to rebuild us, which is so many verses are probably coming to your mind. Like, he breaks down to rebuild, he plucks out to plant, all of these things. It's all over the Old and the New Testament. that it's not a new concept, but I just wanted to share it through the lens of my story, just to encourage people that either if you feel like you're getting torn down through these things, that God is probably tearing down a lot of the crookedness that's in us in order to rebuild what's strong and healthy and straight and those things. And also that that's only half, not to stop while we're in those hard moments, but to keep going, that his plan is actually to enrich us. But he's not going to do it the easy way. He's going to get all the junk out. He's going to dig in, and he
Yes.
is not afraid of mess. So
That's right.
it will get messy, and it will be raw, and it will be all of these things. But I think that even part of us longs for that we long for somebody. I long for somebody to care so much about me that they would get into all the mess and not be freaked out by it and not run away, but actually help me with it. And I do
Yes.
believe that I'm not the only one, that wants that. And the Lord has that kind of love for all of us, not just for me. So I really wanted to kind of showcase that and to say that the hard is half, and then the other half is the enrichment that comes after. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are not alone in that. It has taken me a very long time myself to really get comfortable with, and again, I've been out of my corporate job for a couple of years now, and this time has been a very interesting one for me. It definitely doesn't look the way that I thought it was going to when I finally listened and said, okay, fine, I'm going to leave my job. But it has been a continual peeling back of layers. It's
yeah.
that thing where like, okay, well, like, yeah, like me and God are tight. And it's like, yeah, but are you,
Yes.
how tight do you think you are? Yeah, let's go a little deeper, and let's go a little deeper, and let's go a
Yeah.
little deeper. And when we reach that point of understanding that, one, he already knows,
Yeah.
we try to hide things, and I laugh at this now, y'all. I laugh at things because I've done them. So like there's no judgment, there's no condemnation. Like I laugh because I have done it. We try to hide things from God
Yeah.
as if he can't already see them. And it reminds me of Adam and Eve in the garden.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
hid because they realized that they were naked. God knew
Yeah.
you were naked. God
Yeah.
made you that way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he knew that before you did. And just
Yeah.
like with our own troubles and difficulties and our trials, and whether it's our from a mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual aspect, no matter where our challenges lie, God already knows the struggles that we face.
Mhm.
And when we can come to that place where not only do we know that intellectually, but we begin to know that in our heart, and we
Mhm.
begin to know that within ourselves. And that really, I think, allows us to open up and release and say, okay, God, you already know it anyway.
Mhm.
I'm tired of fighting with you. I'm tired of
Yeah.
trying to hide this from you.
Yeah.
Like I surrender.
Mhm.
And when we're able to give that full surrender and just say, Lord, your will be done. Like, do with me what you intend to do.
Mhm.
There is one, let me say, that's not an easy place to get to for
No.
most people. It was not easy
Yes.
for me to get to. There was a
No.
lot of pain involved in that, a lot of struggle involved in that, and a lot
Yes.
of because I'm also a recovering perfectionist and a recovering control freak. So, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what do you mean I don't know all the steps? What do you mean I can't predict the outcome?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah, God spent a lot of time working on me. And
Yeah.
that's okay, because I knew from the beginning he was going to use it. I
Yes.
didn't necessarily know that I wanted him to use it, but again, we had to get to that point where it was like, you know what? It's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about how you designed me to be used for you. So,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah. 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 I think that surrender too. I mean, our perfectionism can creep in so easily because I know that I just want to surrender and move on and be done. But that's also such a perfectionist thing to say. Like, I want to perfectly surrender to
Yes.
everything, and then move on to the next thing. But it's this process of, like you're saying, it's a surrender, but then the next layer that comes up is also, again, a yielding to either the voice of the
Yes.
Lord or a change or whatever may come. And so it's this continuous thing that I can never do in the sense of be done
Yes.
doing. I don't
Yes.
know, but it's not surprising to the Lord also, like you said, and he's not in any kind of rush that I'm in for some reason. I don't even know why I'm rushing. Like, where am I going? What do I want to do after that? I don't know. I just want to be done and do something else. But it's not like I know what is after that. But he just is in, yes, which thankfully, I mean, praise the Lord, he does not share that need to rush through or to do things the way that I want them to be done, but is just in it to really walk alongside me. So yeah, I definitely resonate with what you're saying.
And that's a beautiful point to bring up as well. Just the fact that we as human beings, and I have no idea why either, like why we are in such a rush and such a hurry all the time. Like, what are you planning to do anyway? Like, do you
Right.
even know? Like, where are you in a hurry to get to?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna again laugh about this. I see this when I'm driving a lot. Like, I'll be driving and I'm just driving, and someone will like come up behind me and like go around me real quick. And then I'm just driving and I'm just driving. And then I get to the stoplight and, oh, look who's right in front of me. The person who was in such a hurry to, speed around me and go like, we're waiting at the same red light. Like, you got
Yes.
there faster than I did, but we're still waiting at the same red light. And I bet my blood pressure's lower than yours.
Probably. Although I was going to say that was probably me. So
Oh, listen, that used to be me,
I'm
which
not a
again,
good,
which is why I can laugh about it, because
not a
I
patient driver.
I get it. Like, I get it, but at the same time, hopefully in our lives with age, with experience comes
Yeah.
wisdom.
Yes.
Hopefully
Yeah.
we are learning as we go through these
Mhm.
different parts of our life and we gain some of that wisdom. I look back on things now, and all I can do is be like, Lord, just thank you for watching over stupid me, like while we were doing all kinds of things that, we had
Yeah.
no business taking part in. Thank you for just watching over me and being like, oh, Lord, child, I can't wait till you get out of that phase.
Yeah.
But God is not impatient with
Mm.
us. And we're impatient with ourselves, and we think, oh, well, I should, even in our faith walk, I should be further along. My
Mhm.
relationship should be better. I shouldn't be making these mistakes anymore. I should be perfect. I
Mhm.
should
Yeah.
be in that place. And that's I think a tool of the enemy to try to rush us past
Yes.
the goodness that God has. He is the master gardener, and he takes his time to cultivate within us
Mhm.
those things that he needs to bring out and bear fruit. And we can't rush that process. So,
Yeah.
whew, friends, this is a fabulous conversation today. Well, Wendy, you said that the book is coming out in August. It's going to be released
Yes.
in August. How can people stay in touch with you or connect with you or find out more about the book, and kind of, do you have a wait list or anything like that
Mhm.
where anyone who's interested can go ahead and stay in touch so they know when things arrive, when things happen?
Yeah, so the best way right now would be through my Instagram and Facebook. So it's just my name, Wendy Zahorjanski, which I'm sure will be in the show notes because
Yes.
that's, yeah. My mom even can't spell it after 11 years being married. So anyway, it's fine. Um, that is the best way. I'm working on, my website is also going to be up in the next, maybe even by the time, I hope by the time this is even released, the next couple weeks it should be up, which is also going to be my first and last name. But I'll put a link on Facebook and Instagram, and there's going to be a pre-release book, promotion and all those things. So that's the best way to follow me right now, is on those two on social media. And then we can go from there together.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait. I'm excited for the book to come out. I'm excited to have the opportunity to read through it and really, I feel like it's full of just powerful and impactful stories that are really going to allow people to see themselves in that
Mhm.
and to understand, that they're not alone. That's one of the
Yes.
main reasons that we
Yes.
have guest episodes on this
Yes.
podcast is one,
Yeah.
so that people get to listen to someone other than me, but so that they can see
Yeah.
through other people's stories that, oh my goodness, wow, I don't
Mhm.
face this difficulty alone. Like
Yes.
someone else has already gone through this. Maybe
Yeah.
someone else is struggling right now with the thing I'm struggling with. And
Mhm.
it inspires and encourages us so much just to know that we're not the only person that struggles
Yes.
with things like perfectionism
Totally.
and,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Because that's such a lie too, right? From the enemy and ourselves that we're alone, we're the
yes,
only ones, that nobody gets us, which is just the Lord gets us,
rubbish.
first of all, but it's just not true. Yeah, it's just not
Yeah,
true. And so, yeah, the more that we can encourage each other and just, I don't know, be brave to put our stories out there, I really think that we'll see that we're not so different. We're so different, but not so different that it's just, that I think that we can learn so much from each other. So thank you so much. I'm
absolutely.
excited for you to also to read my story and to hear people's feedback and all the things, that come along with that. But
Yes,
yeah.
all the things. Well, Wendy, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the podcast today. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And like I said, I'm looking forward to staying connected and following your journey. So thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time too, and I'm looking forward to see where this journey leads.
Hey, friend, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It's my pleasure, as always, to be here with you. If what you listened to today resonated with you, if you enjoyed listening to the show, do me a favor. Go ahead and like and subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. Those reviews are so helpful. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate each and every single one of them. And go ahead and share this episode out with a friend. Invite them along for a walk through the Word, and let's enjoy that daily bread together. See you tomorrow.